Welcome to the Paradise Paradox. My name's Aaron Battle.
My name's Kurt Robinson.
Today we're going to talk about Illuminati. What is the Illuminati?
Are you being controlled by demons under your bed? Your local council workers could be working for the Illuminati, moonlighting as Satan worshippers in the botanical gardens.
Are you illuminated? Are you awake? Are you controlling your own mind? Or are you letting the media paint that back wall any color they want?
Yep. And the four stages of the Illuminati: the politicians, the media,
the schooling system, and your own job.
Are these four factors controlling you, keeping you oppressed, maintaining you as the status quo, as another non-player character in the Matrix? Are you being controlled? Are you being told to obey, consume, live, get married, procreate, then die?
Ask the questions now before it's too late. That's right. Are you playing the game? Are you playing your own game? Or are you letting your job, your government, your home life and schooling education map out your complete future?
Okay, so let's get right into it. Press like, press subscribe, leave us a comment, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever else you want to, Pocket Cast and iTunes. Let's get into it.
Check it out.
Press like on YouTube, press like on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Pocket Casts. Follow us on Twitter @BattleAZ, @TroubleBubble, and show your support at donate.theparadiseparadox.com.
Hey, welcome again to the Paradise Paradox. My name's Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Battle.
So today we're talking about the Illuminati. And the first item on the agenda that I want to address is the definition of the word Illuminati. Because the thing is, Illuminati in its most general sense, what it really means is any group of people who are claiming a special enlightenment or claim to have access to a special body of knowledge or level of consciousness, anything like that. So the thing is, a lot of people, like, especially in recent years, it's become common in the vernacular. People talk about the Illuminati in terms of celebrity film clips and all this type of nonsense. But if we go back in time, I mean, I don't like using the word Illuminati because it's so general. It's not specific at all until you apply some more qualifiers. So the thing is, I could say the Illuminati and actually be referring to the Alumbrados, which was a religious mystical movement, a Christian mysticism movement in Spain in the 15th and 16th centuries, which was, originally known as the Illuminados, which you can see basically in it's Spanish for Illuminati. That was a mystic movement which they got persecuted by the Spanish Inquisition, and it only lasted a couple of hundred years from what I can tell.
Yeah, I like that you said it was nonsense. I mean, the original, what we're exposed to today in like media and these video clips, the news, it's all a distraction.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't really know because there's so many levels to it. It's hard to say what really is ridiculous and what isn't.
But you start scratching the surface of this, and you're talking about 500 years ago. Yeah.
Well, in terms of the Alumbrados, that's 500 years ago. Yeah. In the general definition, there's a whole lot of organizations who would fit under the umbrella Illuminati. Like, I could refer to Scientology, like the inner circle of Scientology claims to have special knowledge that other people don't. And that could be an Illuminati if you use that term, or the Freemasons that I've written here, the Knights Templar, which is another organization of somewhat mystical origins, or the Astrum Argentum, the Ordo Templi Orientis, which were two organizations either founded or headed at some stage by Aleister Crowley, which again, they were like secret societies claiming to have some special knowledge. Or the Rosicrucians is another one. So all of these organizations, spanning over hundreds of years of, various levels of actual knowledge.
But what do they claim to know exactly?
Well, different ones claim to have different knowledges. So I guess more generally, it's commonly something to do with mysticism. So something like Gnosticism, some kind of knowledge of the nature of God, or the nature of the universe, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, just the sort of topics that we talk about, I find I've been asked the question, what do you know about the Illuminati, or do you know really who the Illuminati is? And I always give them the same answer. I'm the Illuminati.
All right, so you got it here, ladies and gentlemen. Aaron Battles confessing to be an Illuminatus.
But,
so be very wary of whatever comes out of his mouth.
I will control your mind.
Or at least your own mind.
I like to think I have control at some level.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason why I say that is because when you start looking at what some of the Indian gurus say, they give you the impression that everyone together is Illuminati. And more so people that have control of their own mind and are able to assess their feelings associated with different ideas as they're entering their mind. So I think it's more about controlling your own reality. I think that's kind of the idea that I've been given, or that I've got. But that's based on like Indian sort of gurus and spirituality.
Indian mysticism. Okay, so the idea is that everyone is God, or everyone has access to this greater level of consciousness.
Just to be aware of what's going in your head. I think that's kind of the impression. But maybe these groups have the same knowledge that is important to assess, what music you're listening to, or what books you're reading, what material you're feeding your mind.
Yep. Well, so of course, what I believe when most people say the Illuminati, I think they're actually associating it with the Bavarian Illuminati. So I was just reading a text before. The title was Proofs of a Conspiracy Against All the Religions and Governments of Europe. This was written in 1798. And this was, that's all right, I don't need that part. It was written in 1798 by a fellow named John Robison. And he was describing how he was a Freemason back then in the 18th century. And what happened was he's traveling through Europe. He would go to France and Germany and a few other countries. He was a Briton. And he would discover that things were a bit different in certain lodges. So the thing about the Freemasons is it's a kind of decentralized organization. Each lodge is to some extent autonomous. They don't necessarily need to follow the declarations of a central authority. So they can, to some extent, have their own rules. But one of the rules which is supposed to be maintained in all of these lodges is to not talk about government or religion in any lodge. And he found that rule was being broken in a lot of these. He also found that the people were using the freedom of speech that they could gain as being a member of the lodge, and they were exploiting it. So basically, it sounds like, from his description, I got the impression that Freemasonry was the 4chan of the 18th century, or the internet forum of the 18th century, where people could say whatever they wanted and not worry about consequences because they were among their brothers of the lodge. And what he found was, or what he alleges, is that he found there was a sort of association arising amongst the Freemasonry lodges. And he says that that association, of course, was the Order of the Illuminati, founded by Dr. Adam Weishaupt, a professor from Germany. And so that's his allegation. That organization was outlawed in a few countries, but I mean, what really happens when you outlaw a secret society? Of course, it's the natural response is it's going to go underground. It was secret to begin with, so it wouldn't be any surprise if they continued their organization, even despite the ban.
Well, it's a bit like if the fact that we're talking about this, that they decide to ban our podcast.
Yeah,
it's like I'm still going to hang out and talk with about this kind of thing.
Yeah, well, how are they going to ban it? Well, they ban us off YouTube. We get another website.
It happens.
Put it on Vimeo, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean,
they can't stop us.
There's no stopping us now. We got to roll.
Yeah, but one case that did come up was the case of Mark Dice, and he's a guy on YouTube, and he posts a lot about the Illuminati. He's written a book or two about it, and it's constantly making references to popular culture. I guess it's an attempt to break in to the market, like to show people if there's some kind of meaning behind things in popular culture or how they're being manipulated, allegedly by the Illuminati. And so what happened to his channel was one day he just woke up, went to his computer and found his channel had been deleted along with all of his videos. And so he put out a call to his followers and said, hey, let's put some pressure on YouTube. In about 24 hours, they reinstated his channel. So it's now back up and you can watch his crazy-ass videos about the Illuminati.
What was the reason for taking him down in the first place?
Well, they didn't really give a reason. They just said it violated the guidelines. So if this doesn't get your conspiracy theory circuits firing a little bit, I don't know what would. Because you have to wonder, because if anybody watches his channel, you would have to say, okay, this guy is at least a little bit crazy. And if you haven't been exposed to these ideas before, you will say he's probably a lot crazy. And then for some reason, out of nowhere, they take his channel down. So, what did he do, or who did he offend?
Well, I don't think he's doing I don't think he's doing any favors to the system or to the reality, or whoever's against what he's talking about, because he's very direct. He's calling out artists and he's giving examples and he's painting all the pictures in.
Yeah,
he's very descriptive. But I mentioned to you, although I found it entertaining, I think he falls short a little bit in the severity.
In his analysis.
Yeah.
In the severity.
Well,
okay.
I think so, because I think he's very superficial with some of the symbols that he shows, and there was an interview that he pulled apart out with Justin Bieber. Okay. And he's like, oh, Justin Bieber, he announced he's part of the Illuminati, and then then a week later he's got an Illuminati tattoo or something. And it's like, who really cares what tattoo he gets? Like, that doesn't prove that he's part of the Illuminati or not. It just maybe he wants to sell more singles. It's like now we're feeding the media hype around, the new tattoo that Bieber got. And that's kind of all superficial bullshit.
Yeah. Well, some people might get paranoid, or they question on another level and say stuff like, oh, well, that means Mark Dice has controlled opposition. It's like Alex Jones is actually Bill Hicks reincarnated, and he's trying to provide this easy straw man attack against the establishment or something like that. Which I think there is some truth to those allegations sometimes. That of course there are things like sock puppets. You know what a sock puppet is?
I could have a guess. Someone that's controlled and told what to reproduce.
Pretty much. So a sock puppet, like a sock puppet account, is where you get someone on Facebook, and it's a phony account. It might be run by, for example, the Australian Federal Police, and they'll go on their own page, and then they'll start posting things and and attacking anybody who voices any unpopular opinion and say stuff like, who do you think you think you know everything? Whoa, are you some conspiracy theorist or something? Or whatever they say, they will take down or attempt to take down the people who are bucking the system a little bit. And I've actually seen this myself, because I was on I think it was on the Australian Federal Police one, and I was on there, and my friend Bob was posting on there as well. And then we started to look at the things people were saying, because we were like, these people are a bit daft, like more than usual. So we started looking at each of their accounts on Facebook, and we noticed like a lot of them had only been made in the last couple of months. A lot of them only had 50 or 100 friends. A lot of them had friends who weren't in Australia. Like one of the accounts I looked at had about 50 or 100 friends, and I started clicking through those friends, and I noticed they were like women from the Czech Republic or from Romania. Like these were actually fake accounts as well, like spam accounts that were created to promote cam girls or something like that. So
I just thought of a business idea.
Yeah, well, making sock puppet accounts or making cam girl accounts on Facebook. Yeah,
all of the above.
That's a great idea.
How long ago did this happen?
Oh, this was about a year ago.
Okay.
And yeah, so I've read some stories as well, which I remember I read one story, very difficult to verify, but it was talking about how this guy applied for some strange-looking ad in the paper. It's saying like, "Hey, do you use social network sites? Are you savvy with the young folk? Come work for us." And he was working for this. Yeah,
cool.
He was working for this organization, a company which apparently was contracted by some 3-letter agency in the United States, and he was told to use all these propaganda techniques or these rhetorical techniques to derail conversations about, say, for example, the state of Israel, to stop people questioning Israel or call them anti-Semitic, and a few other things, to stop them criticizing.
What I'm thinking about here is if they're trying to derail people exercising their ability to do their own research and put out stories, and I mean, why are they putting so much effort towards that if this is all crap?
Yeah. Well, that's the question. Like, if somebody's onto truth, then the idea is to derail it so they don't follow it to its natural conclusion, so they don't do any more research, or at least they have trouble discussing it in a public forum like on Facebook.
I think that's why the media so they seem to jump at being able to, and I'm saying, I'm saying even like social media. People are like, oh, you're part of the Illuminati. There's a picture of a pyramid or an eye in the background of that video clip, and this artist is Illuminati, and the artists don't care. Like, they don't even write their own songs anymore. Like, who cares what they're singing about? It's like, they
pretty much.
They are the puppets, and they're told, play it cool, interviews, laugh it all off, keep getting paid your millions. I mean,
don't deny that you're part of the Illuminati.
Play it up, even. Play it up. Go get a tattoo for the Illuminati. You know what I mean? And that's good.
Yeah,
it's good for your character. It's good for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in the media talking about Illuminati is just washing it over everyone as if it's just like superficial crap. But we're talking about the possibility of secret societies that are hundreds of years old that are pushing towards what? Like, what's the agenda?
I don't know. We can go into like. You talk about Agenda 21. We can get into that another time. Yeah,
I mean, I know there's many different. There's talking about new world orders and one world currencies and depopulation tactics and the technologies and harps and false flag events.
All kinds of nasty stuff.
I clicked a few things.
The rabbit hole goes very deep, and that's I guess that's one reason why we can be hesitant to talk about this, because once you get going, there's like an endless flow of information, and who the hell knows how much of it is accurate and how much of it is some wacko writing in his backyard, or how much somebody is a CIA agent on the internet posting on a university website or whatever the hell it is. But
that's the scary part, because it's not just one wacko.
Yeah,
there's hundreds of these websites, and there's like testimonials that go on forever.
Yeah. And some of them, obviously some of them are not wackos. Some of them seem to be quite reasonable, and they're coming at it from a critical angle. And of course, when you get that stuff, that's gold. That's what you really want to be reading. But I think a lot of people who are, well, it's difficult to get in there and critically analyze it, because there is so much strange information out there. But in reference to the music industry, like you're talking about Justin Bieber, and Jay-Z comes up. I've got this quote here from Lauryn Hill, and Lauryn Hill was accused of tax evading for 3 years. And her story was that she was actually trying to escape the music industry. So, or that is, she was trying to escape the control of certain people in the music industry. So she went out to a kind of fortified compound, or a place, some farm in the middle of nowhere, where she believed the people who were trying to control her or influence her negatively would be able to affect her. And so she was. Here we go.
You got it?
Yeah, it's fine. So here was an extract from some of the text she wrote. I entered into my craft full of optimism, which I still possess, but immediately saw the suppressive force with which the system attempts to maintain its control over a given paradigm. I've seen people promote addiction, use sabotage, blacklisting, media bullying, and any other coercion technique they could to prevent artists from knowing their true value or exercising their full power. So the question with that, I guess, would be whether this is something just within the music industry, or whether there's some overarching, secret overlord controlling the whole thing behind the scenes, manipulating it so black kids are more influenced by gangster rap and want to emulate 50 Cent and become a pimp or something stupid like that.
Rick Ross.
Yeah, Rick Ross, the correctional facilities. He was an officer in a jail. He was a screw. Yeah, and stole it, or, well, shall I say, he borrowed the name of Freeway Ricky Ross to gain his reputation.
Maybe he leased it.
Well, I think there was a court case over that, but I think they ruled against Freeway Ricky Ross. They said that Rick Ross was obviously a fake, and that was the case that his own attorney made. Rick Ross was so obviously a fake. Nobody takes the stories in his rhymes seriously. So for that reason, he shouldn't owe any likeness rights or anything like that to Freeway Ricky Ross. But it's kind of like a real life CB4. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Okay. In CB4, who is it? Chris Rock, straight-laced, a good school kid, but he knows this guy called Gusto. Gusto goes to jail for being too badass. He's a drug dealer or something. So Chris Rock's character decides to steal Gusto's name and use it to build a rap career, and it's kind of a parody of NWA.
Well, you mentioned the movie with Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's like another example of an interesting event, and where does the information of that come from to build that kind of story? So
the movie is Bowfinger, and in the movie, Eddie Murphy is a famous film star. Eddie Murphy's character is a film star, and they take him to this organization called Mindhead, and it's supposed to be some kind of advanced therapy center, but it actually seems to be some kind of cult or brainwashing facility where they're controlling the celebrities, just more or less like Lauryn Hill is describing. They're using these manipulation tactics to control people. So I have to wonder how much of that film, how much of that idea of Mindhead is actually reality.
Well, this quote that you just read out,
Yeah.
how did you interpret that? I mean, other than just the mind control or, you know, of everyone. Like, how did you, I mean, I'm just reading it through it again, like, I entered into my craft of optimism. Like,
you're interpreting it like she's saying witchcraft or something. I'm pretty sure she's talking about songwriting.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, I mean, the ability to create something out of your own creative thought and put it out to the world where it's going to affect possibly millions of people in different ways. You know, you're then changing the collective understandings of what you're putting out there. So, I mean, it's within the best interest, if there is a controlling force or a certain group that want to have control, then it's important to control that channel. So you don't want artists to be able to produce their own thought. It's like, why would you want that?
Yeah, that's right.
Watch us again at the Paradise Paradox. Watch us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Tweet us on Twitter, and listen to us on iTunes or Pocket Casts.
So, as I entered into my craft, not a spaceship, but the ability, the ability to create your own output, and having control over that channel, and having control over who's going to receive that, or just having it open. She mentions that the artist may not know the true value. And I mean, I'm not thinking dollars or how much financial wealth they're going to be able to create from, you know, producing their own artistic output. It's like the ability to get a message to move public, or at least, you know, resonate feelings in certain minority groups is so powerful that of course a controlling body isn't going to want that, and irrespective of whether that's government or, you know, police authority or whatever. And I mean, the first example that jumps to mind is like Tupac.
Tupac, and of course in the documentary Biggie and Tupac, the filmmaker makes the case that Tupac was actually being manipulated by some federal agents. Like, while he was in prison, people would come up to him and they start a conversation, and Tupac was like, "Man, I don't know who's out to get me." And this guy's like, "What? You don't know? Everybody's talking about it. Biggie's trying to kill you, man." And Tupac's like, "Oh, what?" And you know, he's a bit paranoid. Maybe he's on drugs or something. But it became kind of obvious how paranoid he was in his later days. Well, I guess he was justified in his paranoia, but he started to increase his output of music, like recording every single day, because he's like, I got to leave a message to the world, which is quite an impressive response when you have a fear for your life.
Well, that's someone maximizing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, we all seem pretty complacent, like we're going to be here for many years. I don't know why we're not doing a podcast every day.
Yeah.
I mean, another example, like Bob Marley. You know, like, this is like super value. And that lives on through time. And it's like, you can't put a dollar value on that. And they weren't doing it for that.
Yes.
I think you look at the apparent Illuminati artists today, and like, they're not going to turn up if you're not going to pay them. They don't give a shit about the people and what they're about, or what they're wearing, or what they're told to wear or sing, or what, you know, what the backdrop is.
Right.
Like, there's no feeling behind there's no movement.
Well, this is a thing in the golden era of hip hop. You have, you know, Biggie on the East Coast and Pac on the West Coast, and if we get, I don't think this is outlandish to suggest that the FBI was looking at hip hop as a movement and saying, hold on, we got things like the Million Man March, which there probably wasn't a million people there, but the point is, hip hop started to have the power to mobilize thousands of young black people. And so, of course, they're going to say, well, hold on, this isn't good for us. This, from their perspective, this is like a terrorist threat. So then they go and figure out a way to shut that down. And you might say, well, the Illuminati's behind that because they want people controlled. I would say it's probably not necessary to allege that because the FBI doesn't want people doing that anyway. But that doesn't disprove the idea that there might be some controlling force behind that.
When you say controlling force,
yeah,
I'm going to jump back to like the Indian gurus that say the controlling force is you controlling your own mind. We're talking about artists that are able to get up and move people because they're singing the same ideas, or they're singing out something so real to everyone else that all of a sudden it's not about people controlling people like the media or like education or the government with their announcements or whatever. We're talking about people all of a sudden becoming activated and thinking for themselves.
Yes. And I look at Michael Jackson as well as a great example because the other day I posted, "They don't care about us" on Facebook. And I said, look at this young black man. He's really hooked into the spirit of the times. This song is, nearly 20 years old now. But he's saying, all I want to say is they don't really care about us. He's saying these power structures exist and they're not there to protect us. They're not there to help us. They're there to do something very different. And you could see what the media did to him. I mean, I don't know. There's, of course, there's all these allegations that he's a pedophile and all this crazy stuff. But I think whether he was or not, they would have done the same thing to him because he's questioning. He's asking too many questions.
Yeah, it falls straight into the model.
Yeah,
it falls straight in the model of take him out.
Yeah,
like there's something here we can't control.
Yeah,
but then you start to wonder, who are they? Like, who is this controlling body? And people's like, oh, you're crazy to think something's trying to control you. But I mean,
well, this was kind of his experience towards the end. Like, he didn't want to leave his house. He was worried people were trying to get him. And of course, he ended up overdosing on prescription drugs. And Whitney Houston was another example, just happened to overdose on prescription drugs. Yeah.
Well, there's so many artists that fall into drugs,
yes,
or into abuse of something simple like harmless old alcohol. It's like, and this isn't. I mean, okay, let's have a look. There's probably hundreds of examples, like Jim Morrison, Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
All people that need to escape from something.
Yeah, like Kurt Cobain. Like, imagine if Kurt Cobain wasn't on heroin and he started to look at his life and he started to look at the fans and he said, hang on, I'm in a position to really make a difference in this world. Well, imagine if he hadn't have died and he came to that realization. The world will be a very different place today.
It almost seems scary to be an artist with that much power because at that point you realize that you need to pull your head into line or you get paranoid or you start writing yourself off on drugs as if, I'm crazy, leave me alone, which just seems, I mean, that could be, the data's there to see a trend.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that's what they're doing, but have you seen the movie They Live?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
1988.
Yep. And so the main character, he actually doesn't have a name, but he's kind of a drifter, comes into a city and he somehow finds this, in the back of a church, he finds a pair of sunglasses which enable him to see the real faces of people. And it turns out there are secret messages everywhere telling him to obey, telling him to consume and just go along and live a normal life and die. And then there is these aliens pretending to be humans, disguised as humans, all through the streets. And
psychopaths.
Yeah, it could be a kind of metaphor for psychopaths. That's one way to look at it.
Like, okay, a human, not human. Something like that.
Yeah, or reptilian. Of course, that's another way.
It's too much craziness. But looking at, I mean, it's not hard to join dots with when people refer to them and they, and this is what they're doing. I jumped on a website, tribulationinstitute.com, and it's, I mean, if you're looking for a crazy website that's got summaries of every single possible 2015 false flag event, or just there's, I mean, it's unlimited craziness. They've got a few examples on where they or who they might be, and they look at the hierarchy of they start at the bottom, as in we human beings, where we are, and they look at all the different levels of control and structure that we have. That is just normal. So in our own lives, we have our own school and education. We have our own job. We're born into a birth certificate with the government details and a country and everything, just normal stuff. We grow up to get a job. So all of a sudden we're part of the labor force, so that we can start producing something and start paying tax on it, so we can be part of this system. Yep. You jump above that, and all of a sudden you start looking at what are we a part of in our mind? Mind structures that we are involved in. Certain like religious groups you might be attended, or we might attend, or a religious anything. I mean, the government that we seem to follow. Our own desire to educate ourselves, and then we follow the media. That's just level one. But then what's above that?
Yeah.
It's
so all these power structures who have the ability and the incentive to control us to some degree, to control what's in our brains. And it's not necessarily out of malice, like if you're a school teacher, but it might be some, you're part of the system. It's like in the Matrix when Morpheus says all of these people are willing to defend this system with their lives. And it's not because they're malicious. It's because they truly believe that's what's good and right.
And that's just population control, the first level.
Yeah.
I mean, you keep going above that. There's the banking system that supports government, that supports your workplace, all that. I mean, and without being crazy, you can start drawing levels.
Yeah.
And then, which financial institutions, it goes on forever. But, and then you go they. And, then you start thinking of, the guy that you're going to vote into, red or blue politics, as if he's the guy that's in control. It's it's silly.
Yeah. Well, in an episode of Juice Rap News, Hugo and Giordano make the case that to talk about the Illuminati is actually denying your own power in an extent, because you actually, in the way they draw this diagram of the Illuminati, they're like, you're part of the pyramid, you're right in there. You do have the power to change things, and don't forget it. And the way you're manipulated, or the way you're unconscious or go along with the flow, does affect things.
Yeah, it's
and that's so important.
This idea of consciousness, and that I'm not controlled. I'm part of it. I'm not controlled by the system.
Yeah, how do we know? We don't know. We don't know to what extent. We can make reasonable guesses, but we never really know.
if I'm in the pub talking to someone and they go, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm not controlled by the system." I'll tell them at that point to go shout me a beer, because I can't talk to you anymore. It's like to even say that. It's like you're not aware. Like you're not critically analyzing your position. It's like you're happy to accept.
Yeah. Well. One thing in the media, a few months ago, there was this case on Bill Maher's show, and he had Ben Affleck on there, and Sam Harris came on there as well. And I think both of them were kind of mistaken about some of their points. I mean, they were talking about Islam, and the thing about this, whether they were wrong or right, the thing about it was Ben Affleck had been kind of prompted. He had a handler who had told him before the show that Sam Harris was going to be on there and that Ben Affleck should say certain things. So Ben Affleck was going in there with the impression like this guy is going to say this politically incorrect nonsense and I have to denounce him any way that I can. And you watch it and that's more or less exactly what he did. He misrepresented Sam Harris's position several times. And he was also rather rude because Bill Maher was introducing Sam Harris and Ben Affleck jumped in to interrupt in the middle of it. The thing was, I have to ask, who is this handler? Why is there this influence from leftist thinking or overly politically correct thinking in Hollywood? And why is that so important? And yeah, it's rather unusual too because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon got into Hollywood by writing this script, Good Will Hunting, which is rather incisive in many ways. And then it seems like Ben Affleck goes on and now he gets manipulated.
You can't enter that industry. I mean, you can't enter that industry as an innocent and not expect anything like that to happen.
Yeah, you would have to be properly mentally prepared if you were getting into that industry because you could live in a very insular world. All your friends would be people that are within that network as well, and you don't know what's real. And then you look at things like one case is with Dave Chappelle, how he decided he had to quit his job. Is like, is it all this pressure or is this, maybe there's something weird going on? People are trying to control you. And in one interview, he brings up examples like Martin Lawrence freaking out and going crazy. And as a contrast, I would bring up someone like Marlon Brando, who decided to live, I think it was in... Let's see. He decided to live in Fiji, I believe, and he's like, these people are very humble. They won't kiss your ass. They will show you the regular, the respect that they would show anybody, but they won't kiss your ass, and that's why he loved living there because it would keep him grounded.
It's real.
Yeah, as opposed to living in Hollywood. LA is a crazy place. I don't think I would live there.
I don't think I would either, but that's probably because it's on the fault line and the volcanoes are about to go.
Well, that's another thing. There's earthquakes going there all the time in California.
When I think of controls,
yep.
I think of Mel Gibson.
Yeah, okay.
Flipping out, bashing someone with his phone, and and there's a lot of people.
No, you're mixing up Russell Crowe. Because Russell, or maybe you're not, but Russell Crowe beat somebody with a phone.
Okay, no, maybe.
Mel Gibson called somebody a nigger, a Jew, or something like that, and that was what happened to him. So they had this purported recording. I don't know if it's actually a recording of him because later he kind of denied it, and it was like. They painted him as the anti-Semite, and that way they can just write him off, and they can more or less forget about him. Like, you're not part of the industry anymore because we use this A word, anti-Semite, and that's the end of that.
that was Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
So even with both examples, it's like what is that shift in between the media loving these guys and promoting their movies and everything's great and good family life, and then all of a sudden it's like they're the worst people.
Yeah,
it's like they're the villains.
Yeah, and like with Michael Jackson or Bill Cosby, whoever, and the world can just turn on a dime. Like they get told a couple of things a few times by the media, and people say that's the court of public opinion. Oh, the court of public opinion actually means you heard something on TV five times, and that's a court. That's not a court. That's not justice.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
I mean, anyone that's able that says on the news last night. Did you see Mel? And it's like you didn't see Mel. You saw the news.
Yeah. You saw one representation of him, and that's very different. Yeah.
There's a very good interview I haven't seen it for a while, where Mel Gibson comes on and says, I'm sorry, I said a few things, didn't mean to, just kind of slipped up, and and I can see him behind his face laughing, as in, I got the phone call from them, and I was told to get on and do this interview, and the first half's cool. He's reading the script and he's having a joke. He's like, I just lost my temper and things came out, and it wasn't really me. It was from a conversation, something happened before, and he's playing it cool. And then they start hitting him with some solid questions, and you can see him getting flustered underneath, and he's still playing it cool. And you can see he just wants to grab the mic and he start hitting people with it. And I wonder what pushes someone to that level of frustration. And it can only be control. Otherwise, you wouldn't get frustrated. You tell your story as it is, and you wouldn't be sorry, and you wouldn't care what you've said. But you have to. Otherwise, you're not getting the next movie, or you're going to lose your house, or lose your friends that might not even be your friends. Yeah, it's there's no way I'm living in LA. You couldn't do it. How could you feel successful knowing that you're playing a game?
Yeah. Well, what about? Oh, it's an alternate case, and this is kind of weird. Roman Polanski. Public doesn't seem to hate him all that much, actually, but he's like he ran away from the United States because he didn't want to be convicted for sexual assault on a minor, and it seemed to be more or less proven, but nobody really cares. Nobody talks about it all that much. Or another example. Charlie Sheen. So after 9/11, Charlie Sheen started to ask questions. Does this look like controlled demolition to you, like World Trade Center 7? And I guess it was years after, so I don't know if there's a what kind of causal effect, but obviously this is a guy who's willing to ask questions. And then years later, they portray him as a nutcase and an addict and all this stuff. And he comes out in interviews and is saying, I just feel like the power of the universe is expressing itself through me, or some stuff like that. And everybody says, Charlie Sheen, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, it's cool. This guy's all right.
Yeah. That could be another scene. He's just playing a game. He said, you know what? You chill. Here's an unwritten check. You get on, you defame yourself, and we'll pay you to go away. Or these actors aren't adding any value, and they're left alone. You're saying media just accepts them as being crazy, and then that's it. They go away.
Yeah, like they can be as crazy as they want to be, but as soon as they start bucking the system, then they get portrayed as crazy, and then that's the end of the career. I think that's the general trend. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about, which is I found this really creepy. I was watching a sequence of interviews with some young children. They're about 8 to 10 years old in the United Kingdom in a community called Hampstead. And what happened with them, or what they're alleging, is that there's a kind of satanic cult or a kind of very strange organization that ritualistically abuses children and even murders children. And the rumor is that the entire town is in on it, more or less, like politicians and lawyers and doctors and social workers. And these children were the children of an upcoming actor named Ricky Dearman. And these children accused him of doing all this really disgusting stuff, up to the point of murdering babies in a primary school. And they said that this kind of behavior was going on all throughout the primary schools in the area and all throughout the churches. Just to the point where you have to say, how real can this be? But there was some evidence to back it up, where some therapists interviewed the children or counseled the children and said that with this level of detail, there has to be some kind of first-hand knowledge of sexual abuse and some other things. That's a very bizarre case.
It seems incredible that they can keep something that's so widespread
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah. And that's an easy, that's an easy way, which I guess you can say, well, it's so hard to believe it. And, you know, there seems to be some evidence backing it up, but I wouldn't go so far to say as it's true. Personally, I don't want to believe it because it's that disturbing. But I've heard rumors as well, things like people say in the United States, like in Washington, D.C., whoever they are, use this as a control mechanism for politicians. So you go along to these parties with them, and you're a politician, a congressman, and you start to get involved, and they say, hey, you know, the first couple of times you're drinking champagne with them, but then the next couple of times you're smoking weed, and then you're doing heroin, meth, cocaine, and then it gets to the point where they're like, hey, do you want a hooker, and so on, until you're like abusing children, and at that point you almost don't have a choice because they have so much evidence of you doing these obscene acts that you have to go along with it. And then if in Congress you get your arm twisted, you have to go along with the bill, you have to agree to the Patriot Act or whatever it is without having read it, because you know if you don't, then your life is over and your family will disown you, and that will be the end of that, because you will be portrayed exactly as they want you portrayed. But I haven't seen much evidence of that. As far as I know, that's just a rumor. And again, I'd like to believe it's just a rumor because it's so disturbing.
See, I've heard so many cases of that happening that maybe some of them are rumors, but the fact that we're talking about that as an example, it's got to happen somewhere to somebody. Well,
there are some verifiable, veritable cases. For example, there was a TV presenter in the UK, and he was a presenter for like 30 or 40 years. I think he got recognized by the Queen at some point. Either he was knighted or received some medal, the Order of the British Empire, or something similar. And after his death, it turned out he was a paedophile. And some of the other presenters on the BBC said, oh yeah, I knew that all along. And you turn and look at and say, hold on, you knew it? You knew it all along? What do you mean you knew it and you didn't say anything? What is going on here?
See, whether it happened or didn't happen, you know, the media. Okay, let's say in this case, you're pretty sure it happened.
Yeah, from what I can tell, I haven't researched it into it too deeply, but there doesn't seem to be much controversy about it. So yeah,
I mean, it just seems that the media is able to fabricate whatever they want. So you know, they could,
okay, yeah, fair point
as well. I mean, I'm just playing both sides.
Yep,
but it wouldn't be hard to buy people and say, you know, to say here's a check, right? Just read the script. Here's a camera, and you're on.
Yeah.
And all of a
so
sudden
if they wanted to destroy his character, for some reason,
I knew about it, but you know, it's Aussie culture. You don't snitch on a mate. And all of a sudden, it's like, you know, like you're saying, like you knew, but and it's like, well, I don't believe anything anymore.
Yeah,
it's really hard, but that doesn't take away the fact that people are controlled. Because it's knowing that it's so easy to fabricate stories or to release stories and know that, you know, like you said, the whole world's going to spin on that dime, and you know, you're done. Yeah,
because if you watch the news and actually believe the news and don't think about it critically, sitting in front of the television for 3 hours a night, just letting it passively absorb into your brain, you know, taking control of your brainwaves, then you're just another cop in the Matrix.
But that doesn't make you the Illuminati, or that doesn't mean the TV is Illuminati, even though it doesn't
necessarily. No,
it may illuminate the room.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, my name's Kurt Robinson.
My name's Aaron Battle.
Press like, press subscribe, press comment. Leave us an interesting story if you have some personal experience with the Illuminati, and throw us a few bones at donate.theparadiseparadox.com. Subscribe on iTunes and Pocket Casts. Press like on Facebook. Press the get notifications button on Facebook so you can stay in contact with us. And don't go along with any UK politicians or school teachers because they might be leading you down the way to a satanic cult. All right. Have a good one.
Wash out and go.
Peace.